It's time to get into it.
There's no one here but us.
The Stool with Matt and Nick.
Although I saw something that reminded me, when you said that things have gotten worse, was I saw somebody post about how they tried a DMT dab pen at like some county fair or something. Of course, it'd be like probably from a carny at a county fair that you'd have a DMT dab pen. And I just had to reply, yeah. I'm like, Jesus, people. I'm like, not. I was like, I'm not coming down on DMT here. Like, it's pretty interesting stuff. But a dab pen, like, you understand there's still some validity or importance to, like, living in the real world, like, at points of the day, right? You really need a fucking DMT dab pen?
Yeah,
like,
dude.
I think...
I mean, like, seriously, DMT is the kind of thing where you're supposed to do a hit and, like, you know, in a safe environment. Don't be... Was this guy running the Ferris wheel and just dabbing
Probably.
DMT all day? Like, Jesus, man.
Well, honestly, that reminds me of a crazy ass video I saw last night. There's one of those the carnival rides we were talking about it, just you and me a couple weeks ago. The one that just goes around and around. It's like kind of looks like a hammer. It's got like the counterweight on like the bottom side and like the whole row of people.
Oh yeah, the Alibaba.
Just, like, yeah, and it just swings. So I think this was in Ohio. It just like happened over the weekend. There's people on the ride, and it wasn't like assembled right, and the thing started shaking back and forth as these people are spinning around, and it just looked like it was going to shatter. It almost looked like an earthquake was happening at the time this ride was going, which is what I thought really was happening. But no, the ride was just messed up, and all these people ran up, and they like latched onto the fence at the front of it to like give it counterweight to hold it down until like the operator could come back and like shut it down.
Oh man, that entire, just hearing you describe that gave me so much anxiety.
Could you imagine? Yeah, being on that fucking. First of all, you're never going on a carnival ride ever again.
Ever again.
Not that that's like the word. Like, oh, my life is so much less fruitful now that I can't go on a carnival ride. But,
yeah, man. I mean, like, it does make you think about how much you're putting trust into said rides to not kill you. And when something like that just goes, like, I'm assuming just, like, not a very big thing went wrong for that ride to all of a sudden go haywire. And, like, everybody could have died.
Well, and like, so all these people were like ripping on, you know, the carnies and stuff, and there was actually people coming in like, hey man, lay off the dude making $7.50 an hour to support his meth habit. Like, there's actually like people that go around and they check. There's an inspector at like every carnival, I guess. There's people explaining this, you know, that go around and they check all these things. So like, obviously an investigation needs to be done, but to your point, like, yeah, it's probably just something very small, because like, there were a lot of people kind of sticking up, like, as much as people know that there's, like, danger with these rides, like, there actually is, like, protocol in place to make sure that this shit, like, doesn't happen, you know? We're not literally putting our our lives in the hands of, you know, meth addicts, but, like, yeah.
Right.
What people were ripping on, though, is the carny operator, as the ride's going around and starts to shake, he just ditches. Like, he doesn't even try to do it. I forgot
like, nope,
about
I ain't catching this lawsuit. See you later.
And I think truly, like, if he would have even tried to hit like the stop button, the thing was gonna come down and smack him. Like, so there wasn't really like a safe way to like turn it off. Like, he had to go get help. From what I understand, again, I only watched the video and read some comments, but yeah.
Yeah, can't talk too much shit about the carnies, man. Back in the day, my buddy Joel and I growing up together, his grandpa used to run security at the Sheboygan County Fair, and him and I befriended this carny who usually ran the bumper car, sometimes a tilt-a-whirl, but we always just called him Toothless Joe. Not to his face, I think his name was just Joe, but he had no teeth. And the number one advice that he gave us, just pure wholesome life advice about the carnival is that it's never just mud.
That sounds like something a carny would say.
Yeah.
Yep. Like those little bits of life wisdom that have some like truth to them, but are only, something a carny could come up with.
And I mean, to this day, if I go to a carnival, I ain't stepping in any wet spots if I can help it. So, that advice still sticks with me.
I think that's life to live by.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say life to live by? I think that's a life lesson to live by.
Yeah, close enough. Well, I suppose welcome to Loose Stool, everybody. This is Matt sitting here talking to Nick, and I see you sipping on something over there, buddy. What you got?
I am drinking a Beck's beer right now. Something I haven't had in a little while. The beer I enjoy every now and again. Pretty good stuff. I'm looking at the can right now, and they've got that, like their symbols, like a giant key. And I'm just remembering how I used to have the coolest fucking bottle opener that was a giant Beck's key like that. And it was like it looked like a huge like castle key from like the 1400s. It was probably like a foot long, and you just used the back end of it. But now I kind of wish I still had that thing. So that's my story. What are you having?
I didn't know that Beck's came in not non-alcoholic, honestly.
Really?
But
no, Beck's is
I didn't know that.
No, Beck's is a very good beer, very well known too. That's surprising.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I guess I've just never seen it outside of like the NA section, but
I got a 4-pack of 16 ounces here. Very good.
Right on.
Very good.
Right on. Well, I'm rocking with the since 1867 that old Keinenlugels Original, and I had previously never really had Leinenkugels outside of like house parties in Milwaukee back in the day, whereas just like for whatever reason that was always the beer that was stocked in the house's fridge. And now that I'm not 20 and I'm actually like taking the time to taste it, not just wash down pills with it, it's pretty good. Yeah, it is good.
Yeah, Leinenkugels Original is very good. I really like that stuff. Actually, my buddy up here, when he gets when his dad comes to visit, he always has him bring like a bunch of Leinenkugels Original, because we get Leine's up here, but we do not get the original. So that's and it's pretty cheap too, if I remember correctly. Like all things considered,
not too bad. Like kind of like middle range, between like. If you want to imagine the scale between like hams and like cores, it's like between the two.
Yeah. It's very much like the banquet beer, actually, isn't it? I would say that's a pretty good comparison. Yeah. Yeah.
I actually, I was thinking about this when I first cracked one open. I bought these a couple days ago, and it reminds me of, you remember those Trader Joe's beers, the Simpler Times that we used to get a lot?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, except like the Simpler Times is a little more like heavy, whereas this goes down a little easier.
Fucking Trader Joe. I mean, like I like Trader Joe's. I'm not really trying to come down on it, but it is funny, like thinking about them coming out with a beer like the Simpler Times. And granted, they had the $2 chuck, and they're very good with like the cheaper alcohol, but it's such like a kind of highfalutin like. Tutti fruit, not tutti fruit, but you get what I mean. Like kind of nose in the air, like it's a little bit upper echelon store, and then to come out,
it's Whole Foods light.
Yeah, and then Simpler Times. Like, come on, you're just pandering to like people to make them feel like, like they're not who they are. Whatever that is, I don't even know what I mean by that, but I feel like. The sentiment is understood, like at least you get it. I don't know.
It's the beer for hipsters in denial.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's like when I lived in River West way back in the day, and there was like somebody had dubbed them like the River West Stinkies, and it was like the girls had like real ratty, nappy, like big ass hair, you know, and everybody like is like the style with like the cut off fingers like on your gloves, and you ride a really shitty old bike, and you do your hardest like to look like you're homeless, but everybody knows these kids are like fucking loaded, like they all got a trust fund and shit, you know what I mean? It's that.
Yeah.
Like,
They have the money to be
look
crusty.
as poor as possible when you got, you know, so much money.
Yeah.
And all the poor people are trying to look like they got money.
Exactly. Isn't that weird how it's just like that cultural paradigm where it's like when a lot, especially like from the ages of probably 19 to 23, all the like rich kids want to be like the grimiest for some reason.
Yeah. And then like we'll go into it like an old like the, and then you hit a stage like, and this is not when you know somebody's like truly rich. It's when they go like to the eccentric point where like now they can just look ridiculous. You know what I mean? Just wear like the craziest clothes, the most like loud like patterns and shit, you know, like it's just like that's, or just have like a really bad haircut, but they got like billions of dollars. You know, like there's actually like a lot of football owners that you see this with, like that are wearing like really terrible suits, or like Mark Davis, who owns the Raiders, has a bowl cut. Like literally, it's like they put a bull on his head, and his freaking bangs are just straight across. And that's the level of rich. Like it is again kind of trying to look poor, but it's more like I'm so rich I can just like.
Yeah, it just doesn't matter. And doesn't he? Maybe I forget if you actually told me this or if I just heard this about him, but like, doesn't he actually fly like quite a distance to get that haircut somewhere?
I wouldn't doubt it. I don't think I didn't bring that up to you, but I wouldn't doubt it. I know I've talked to you about him before for sure, because he's quite the character. You know, it's really funny. He was at the UFC fight last night, and they showed him coming in with his haircut, and it's just too fucking funny. You know, just like landed in a private jet. He's going in the back door. He's got, you know, his people around him, and just the worst hair ever. Like, yeah, it's pretty great. But you know. Like they don't want to pay for their taxes. Well, no, actually that adds up. I was gonna say like you don't want to pay for your taxes and you don't want to pay for a haircut. Well, I guess maybe that's how you become a million or a billionaire. You know, like you got to be that cheap across the board.
Just skimp on your haircut. I think that I mean maybe that's a step, but it's indicative of other things they're doing.
Yeah, that's actually, I've been cutting my own hair like my entire life. I think I've had like 2 haircuts at an actual like, you know, place since I've been like 18 years old that I haven't done myself. And I'm still not a billionaire, so that can't be all that it takes.
It's not the only thing.
Speaking of billionaires, did you see Richard Branson go to space this morning?
I did not, but yeah, tell us more about that.
Oh, it was pretty exciting, I gotta say. Well, it's really interesting because the way his ship works is it's like this like double plane that like in the middle is like a big wing that's like attached, and then what sits under that is the rocket, like the capsule with the people in it. So the plane carries the rocket way up, and then when it gets to a certain altitude, it releases the rocket, and then the rocket fires and sends it the rest of the way into space, where they hit, you know, like whatever, they get to zero gravity, and then they actually see the Earth. So now we can really actually disprove, you know, the flat earthers, because you can buy a flight to outer space to see the shape of the fucking world. Although they're going to say it still looks flat. It just looks like a flat circle. You know?
It's like time.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was honestly like I gotta admit, at first I was like sitting there like having kind of like shitty all these goddamn billionaires, but then as I was watching, I was like, you know what, this is actually very exciting. This is this is a new time like that we are entering right now, with space being that accessible. I won't say as much for Jeff Bezos, because in 9 days he takes off to space, and I hope that shit blows up. But Richard Branson, this shit was exciting as all hell.
So, I'm assuming Richard Branson obviously is a millionaire, but I really don't know anything